Dual axis charts are a fantastic way of being able to have a look at two measures and understand what their performance is like, especially over time. So you can have a look and see, for instance, when my sales increases, do my profits. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at how you build a dual axis chart and how you go about formatting it to make sure that it's easy to read and you can get insights quickly. Hey everyone, welcome back to the first top Tableau tip of 2025. As always, my name is Sam, and today we're taking a look at dual axis charts. So they're really quite straightforward to pull together in Tableau, but they have a lot of use. So let's hop straight into Tableau and take a look at how we would go about building one of these out. So you can see here I've got one that I've made earlier in true Blue Peter fashion. We've got profit and sales within this chart. And we can see we've got our sales as a line coming through, and we can see where it peaks and troughs, and then we've got our profit as bars along the bottom. This might seem as if it's quite a complex undertaking to build, but it's literally about 3 or 4 clicks in order to get a view like this. Let's go to a new sheet and make a new dual axis chart. So I'm going to make a new sheet. As always, you've got to make sure you name your sheets. So maybe this time I want to have a look at the quantity sold and the profit of those. So now that we know what we're going to show on this sheet, let's start pulling in our fields. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my order date. I'm going to right click and bring it in, and that allows me to very quickly pick at what level I want to show this date. And I'm going to show this as weeks here. And then I'm going to bring in my order date up into filters, and I'm just going to filter this down to have a look at 2022. So now I'm going to bring in my profit and I'm going to drop that onto rows, and you can see straight away Tableau's gone right. He's got a date field in here and he's brought in a measure, so he probably wants to see a line chart. Now I'm going to bring in my quantity. I'm going to drop that next to profit, and you can see we've now got 2 separate panes within the view with our 2 different charts. And this is something that when people are first starting out using Tableau, they run into quite a lot. They're bringing in loads of measures. They want to show them on the same axis, and they end up with multiple different panes with the different charts. So how do we go about getting these to show on the same axis? Well, all we need to do is click on the drop down menu here and select dual axis, which is some way towards the bottom. And when we do that, that sticks both our profit and our quantity on the same axis, so it puts them both in the same chart. And so now we've got our 2 line charts. We can see the shape of our quantity and the shape of our profit. And we're able to see, is there any correlation between these two? So we can have a look, and we see here where our red line, which is our quantity, is quite high, as is our profit. But over here, we've got quite a high quantity being sold in week 33. We've got quite a low profit, so we might want to go and dig into that. Now, combined axis charts are something that if you've used Excel, you're probably quite familiar with. It's when you have the bars and a line, and the way of setting that up within Tableau is really straightforward as well. So over here, we have our marks card, and anything we do to these is going to change the marks within our view, which is basically all the different plot points that we have within our view. So if I select all, anything I change on here is going to change all of the marks within my view. So if I say actually I want to change the color, that's going to allow me to pick the different colors for my profit and for my quantity. If I was to say I want to see the labels, that's going to stick the label on for both my profit and my quantity lines. However, if I drop down into where I've just got my profit, so this is now just changing the profit marks. So in here, I could say, actually, I want to just add the labels for my profit, and you can see they're now on there for my profit line, but not for my quantity line. And also we can change this. So I can say, actually, I don't want to have this as automatic, which is coming through as line. I might actually want to have this as a bar. And now I've got my profit as bars, and I've still got my quantity as that line. So that's how you would go about creating a dual axis or a combined chart, like you're similar to Excel. Now, one thing, or a couple of things you need to keep in mind when using a dual axis chart is you have two axes here. So we can see over on the left-hand side, we've got our profit, which is ranging from minus 2,000 up to positive 6,000. And our quantity here is ranging from minus 100 up to positive 400. Now, when we have a look at this, for what we're currently looking at, this is absolutely fine. We would know that if we're looking at the quantity line, we need to make sure that we come over to the quantity axis to see exactly where that's fallen. And we don't want to confuse ourselves and think actually our quantity is £600. So they're not comparable figures. If you are working with something with comparable figures, so if I take out my quantity and I bring in my sales, for instance, and I dual axis this, you can see at the moment we have got a rather interesting graph here. If I change my sales to a line, we can see that because of the setup that we've currently got, over in week 37 here, we have got a profit bar that is higher than our sales line, which is suggesting that we're actually making more profit than we are sales. And that can get quite confusing, especially if you're showing this to someone who isn't familiar with dual axis charts or isn't confident reading data. So when you're using figures that are comparable, so in this case they're both pound values, what is really good to do is to synchronize the axis. And the way that we do that is we right click on either one of these axes. So I'm going to right click on my sales and I'm going to come down here, I'm going to select synchronize axis. And now what this has done is make both our axes work in the same range. So we can see that we have our profit that starts at 0 and goes up to 30,000, as does our sales. And so what this does is now mean that they're both being shown in the same scale, and so we don't have that situation where our profit is seemingly higher than sales. So now we're actually, showing this data in the correct way so that people aren't going to get confused. When you have set up your dual axis chart, you can leave it like this. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, especially if it's for a quick bit of analysis. But if there's something that's going to be used over and over again, you might want to do a few things to tidy it up. So what I tend to do when I'm doing a dual axis is I always get rid of one of these. If we've synchronized them, we don't need to have both the axes there. If we've got one set up like the one we had quantity and profit, definitely do keep that axis there because people need to be able to have a look and see exactly where that figure is. But when you synchronize the axis and you're working on the same sort of values, then you don't need to have both axes. So all we need to do here, right click on that one and uncheck show header, and then we've only got the one axis and we can see that both of these are aligned to that range. If you do that, what you might want to do is then right click on here and we can edit our axis, and rather than it being profit, we could put in here pound value to tidy that up a bit. And obviously you can do all that nice sort of stuff with getting rid of your grid lines. So right click, format, come in here, say I don't want to have grid lines on my rows, and now you've got quite a nice clean visualization. And that is dual axis and how you set one up. So all you need to do, again, we'll just go over it very quickly, is set up your chart as you want it. So I'm going to bring in my weeks, bring in your measures, and then what you need to do is right click on your rightmost pill and select dual axis. And then you can have both measures in there on the same axis. And if you're using something that's got the same values, so pounds, if it's a whole number, if it's percentages, make sure you synchronize that axis in order to not confuse people when they have a look at it. Thanks very much for watching. Hopefully that helped. Hope you go and enjoy building your dual axis charts. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.